Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Michael DiTullo. Welcome to my studio. And today we're going to be talking about small cars in the United States, specifically the Chevy Spark. In the United States, we've never exactly been known for our love of small cars. We've tried at times. We had cars like the AMC Gremlin, the AMC Pacer, which I still think is a legit awesome design, and some of you may know it actually inspired the Porsche 928, but that's a story for another day. Some interesting stuff going on with these cars. Some less innovative examples like the Dodge Omni or the Chevy Chevette. But more often than not, small cars in the United States have been variants of Japanese cars, specifically. For example, the Geo Metro, but really it was a Suzuki Swift, right? I think one of the more interesting examples we've had in the US over the last several decades was a car called the Chevy Spark. I know several young designers that had these. They were great little cars. There wasn't really anything else in the United States at this size that you could get. I mean, this is like um, sub VW Polo size vehicle, probably for you Europeans, like VW up sized. Obviously, like the design is nowhere as cool as the VW up, but it was much loved largely because there wasn't a lot of other options, if any. And so, one thing that struck me is that it seemed really odd that there wasn't an electric version of this on sale in the United States today. A lot of the people that own these cars were city dwellers. It seemed like it would be a perfect EV fit for a small US market car from a US brand. Now you might say, what about the Chevy Bolt? That was a great small EV from an American brand, and that was a great car, and they sold a ton of those things. Um, I think the Spark would be a little bit cheaper than that. That would be the opportunity, certainly. And also, unfortunately, while they are bringing the Bolt back, they're only bringing back the Bolt EUV, which is actually slightly larger than the regular Bolt. So there's still kind of a gap for this small segment. I did a little research. It turns out there is an electric Chevy Spark on sale, just not in the United States. If you live south of the US border, you can get an electric Chevy Spark. It's a rebadged Chinese car. It's a great car. Also, not built by General Motors, but at least they have that option. But we can't get it here in the United States. So I thought maybe it'd be fun to just do a little bit of an exploration on what a current day Chevy Spark EV would look like. All right, let's jump in and see what I did. The first thing I want to do is define the overall envelope for the vehicle. I want this to be a monovolume hatchback, slightly tall, not an SUV or a CUV, just like a tall, solid looking hatchback, almost like it's machined out of a solid block of material. The next, I'm going to bring that windshield and all the way down to the front face of the vehicle. I'm going to put the headlights behind the windshield. Obviously, I'll split this. We don't want that to be a giant piece of glass. You'd get into a 5-mile-an-hour impact and it would shatter the windshield. But I'll split that off later in the video. But I want this illusion of a single piece of material that goes from the front strike face of the bumper all the way back to the spoiler. All right, now that I've got my overall design theme set up, I'm going to lay over a clean layer and start doing some neater line work just to sharpen things up and make things a little clearer. I'm really liking the way this kind of deep side surface is. It makes the vehicle look kind of strong and reliable. And I'm not really trying to make it look like too fast. I want this thing to just look like a reliable city EV that you could use every day and not worry about kind of parking on city streets. I'm going to do some interesting aero wheel covers. Most EVs have aero wheel covers for efficiency, and it's really opened up this kind of new zone of design where you could do some really interesting wheel designs that wouldn't have been possible with a machined wheel. All right, now that I've got the overall design set up, I'm going to start adding some color. Again, kind of highlighting that illusion of a single piece of material from the front bumper all the way back to the rear spoiler, and really almost giving an illusion to what's going on in the interior of the vehicle as well as I render up this glass. Next, I'm going to add some color to the body. I always feel like small cars, they just love to be bright colors. And so this really bright, almost cyan blue, I think would be a really fun color for this vehicle. And now adding some shading to add depth so that the concept can really pop forward and you can read it as a three-dimensional object, even though it's a sketch. Lastly, I'm going to get some headlights in there, and I'm finally going to add that split above the headlights to define kind of the part that would probably be a molded plastic below the actual glass of the windshield, so that you're not striking into glass in the front there, even though we've got a pretty defined strike surface to the bumper below that. A few little detail tweaks here and there. I'm going to tweak the proportions just a nudge, add a couple of little more details, and we're done. I like this little guy. I was trying to not make it look too much like a VW Up, which I have already professed my love for, but it definitely has that kind of like Audi A2 era, kind of solid Germanic design kind of going for it, which I think is appropriate in something like this where you just want it to be a simple vehicle that you can rely on. All right, everyone, that's my take on a Chevy Spark. I've always been a small car person. We've owned some small cars. We had a Volkswagen Golf R, we had a Mini, we had an Audi TT, an Audi S3, all pretty small cars for the US market. In the European market, some of those cars would be considered family cars. But now there's just really not any options for us on the electric side. Right now we have a Polestar 2 and a Hyundai Ioniq 5 because those are the best electric options we could get in our market. But there's no small electric car available in this market outside of maybe the flawed Mini EV that doesn't have great range, is a little bit expensive, and also the Fiat 500e EV, which is really high priced in the US, has very limited range, and ironically you can only get in like black, white, and red for some reason, versus all the cool colors they get in Europe. And so what do you think? Do you think that an American car company like General Motors or Ford should make a small, affordable electric car like a Chevy Spark for the US market? Or are we destined to just get these distorted looking, comically giant pickup trucks that look like some kind of a big snub-nosed pug that's been scaled up to like 30 feet long for some reason that you can't turn and you can't park? Let me know down in the comments what you think. And as always, I love to hear your suggestions for future videos, what you think of things. And if you like this, hit like, hit subscribe, share it with some friends. All right, see you next time.